Hello everyone, this video is about Chapter 5, Cellular Respiration. So what will you learn from this chapter? Cellular respiration is divided into two subtopics, 5.1 Aerobic Respiration and 5.2 Fermentation and its application. So this video we are going to focus on 5.1 Aerobic Respiration. So the first learning outcome, state the needs of energy and the role of respiration in living organisms. Outline the complete oxidation of glucose, which involve glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. So, what is energy? Energy is the capacity to cause change, especially to do work, to move the matter against an opposing force. So it is essential for life. Energy is needed for movement, reproduction, growth, respiration, excitability, excretion, and nutrition. So energy is so much important for the living organism. So how do we get the energy? Example, for animal, we ingest the food. Okay, example, we taken some rice in the form of carbohydrate. So when we digest the rice by using the enzyme, the rice will be broken down into glucose. So when there is the glucose, cellular respiration will begin to form energy. So the role of respiration in living organism, glucose is our main fuel of energy. So when we break down the glucose, it will release the energy which store in the chemical bonds of the food molecules. Energy release is packaged within a chemical compound called ATP. Okay? Besides carbohydrate, fats and proteins also can be used as the fuel. So what is ATP? ATP is known as Adenosine Triphosphate. So it consists of one adenine, okay? So one adenine, one ribose sugar, and also 3 phosphate group. So that's why the name is known as ATP, triphosphate. Okay, bonded to each other. So ATP is a nucleotide with unstable phosphate bond. So the phosphate bond is unstable. They will be broken down anytime. So the phosphate bonds of ATP consist of very high energy. When ATP is hydrolyzed, the unstable phosphate bonds capable to break down and release the energy. So it is a kind of exergonic reaction. So example here, ATP, okay, which has the 3-phosphate, when it is hydrolyzed, it will break down one of the phosphate group here and it remains 2 phosphate groups, so it becomes ADP. So it will release the energy. Okay, so aerobic respiration consists of 3 major metabolisms: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. So aerobic respiration can be defined as a process by which glucose is completely broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and ATP in the presence of oxygen. So oxygen is very important to define it as aerobic respiration. Okay, so the example of the reaction, glucose with the formula C6H12O6, with the presence of oxygen, because this is aerobic respiration, will be broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and also energy in the form of ATP. So, in the cellular respiration, it actually is a kind of redox reaction. Redox reaction means it involves both the oxidation process and reduction process at the same time. What is the meaning of oxidation? Oxidation when there is addition of oxygen. So reduction is the opposite when it is removal of oxygen. Or oxidation is removal of hydrogen, while reduction is the opposite, addition of hydrogen. Okay, and in terms of electron, oxidation is loss of electron, while reduction is the gain of electron. So now in this case of aerobic respiration, glucose is oxidized to produce CO2 by removal of the hydrogen to the oxygen. So now the C6H12O6, they remove the hydrogen and oxidize become CO2. So the hydrogen will be donated to this O2. So now the oxygen will be reduced to produce water by addition of hydrogen to form glucose. So the energy that released from the breakdown of glucose will be used to synthesize energy in the form of ATP. So there is ATP produced in the process of aerobic respiration. However, this process of aerobic respiration can be further detailed into 3 metabolic stages, which is glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and also oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, in between glycolysis and Krebs cycle, we have one small stage which is known as link reaction. So after all these steps has been done, now the aerobic respiration will produce in the total of 38 ATP. Okay, and the glucose will be broken down with the help of oxygen, okay, to produce CO2 and also H2O. So, glycolysis process occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell, also cytosol of the cell. It partially oxidizes one molecule of glucose by breaking it into 2 molecules of pyruvate, okay, in the cytoplasm. The details of the process we will learn in the tutorial later. Okay, the second step is the link reaction, where it occurs in the mitochondria, where pyruvate is translocated into the mitochondria and combined with the coenzyme A to form acetyl coenzyme A. Citric acid cycle, also known as Krebs cycle after the name of scientist, occurs in the mitochondria matrix of eukaryotes or in the cytoplasm of prokaryotes, because prokaryotes do not have mitochondria. So it will complete the glucose oxidation by breaking down the pyruvate derivative, which is acetyl-CoA, into carbon dioxide. While the last step, oxidative phosphorylation, involves 2 processes, ETC and also chemiosmosis. It occurs in the inner membrane of mitochondria or plasma membrane in the prokaryotes. So ETC accepts energized electron from the reduced electron acceptor, okay, which is harvested during glycolysis and Krebs cycle. So we have 2 methods where we can produce the ATP. First method is known as substrate level phosphorylation. Second kind of ATP production is known as oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, what is the meaning of substrate level phosphorylation? Formation of ATP where enzyme transfer the phosphate group from the substrate to ADP. Okay, example here, the enzyme transfer the phosphate from a kind of substrate to the ADP. So when the ADP receives the phosphate, it becomes ATP. Okay, so the substrate will turn into the product. So this is known as substrate level phosphorylation. Okay, so this substrate level phosphorylation occurs during glycolysis and also Krebs cycle. Amount of ATP produced is small compared to the other one. So the other one is known as oxidative phosphorylation. So formation of ATP by using the energy derived from the redox reaction in the ETC. Redox reaction involves oxidation and also reduction. Okay, so we need a large amount of NADH and also FADH2, which produced from Krebs cycle and glycolysis. So NADH and FADH2 will pass the electron to the ETC, where redox reaction occurs and ATP is produced. Okay, so we will learn the details of oxidative phosphorylation in tutorial later. Okay, so for glycolysis, they produce ATP via substrate level phosphorylation. Krebs cycle also produce ATP via substrate level phosphorylation, where oxidative phosphorylation produce ATP. So the major chemical reactions that involve in aerobic respirations are reduction, oxidation, and decarboxylation. So the meaning of reduction we have mentioned just now, when there is gain one or more electron or hydrogen. Okay, oxidation is loss of electron. Okay, decarboxylation, D means remove the carbon dioxide. Okay, so that's the end of this video. See you in the next video. Thank you.